Welcome to Inside Marketing with Market Surge, your front row seat to the boldest ideas and smartest strategies in the marketing game. Your host is Reed Hansen, Chief Growth Officer at Market Surge.
Welcome back to Inside Marketing with Market Surge, where bold tactics meet brutal ROI. I'm your host, Reed Hansen. Today we go analog in a digital world with Travis Lee, co-founder and president of 3D Mail Results, the guy who makes direct mail not just delivered, but opened, read, and remembered. Since 2008, Travis's 3D Mail direct marketing system has delivered jaw-dropping returns from 200% to over 3,500%. For everyone from solo entrepreneurs mailing at a kitchen table to global brands mailing millions. He's worked with legends like Dan Kennedy, Bill Glazer, and the Magnetic Marketing Crew. So because this isn't your grandma's postcard campaign. Let's dig in. Welcome.
Hi, Reed. Thanks for having me. Great to be here today.
Yeah, my pleasure. I always like to work with people with, very high energy and, with some unique perspectives, so they don't get bored of talking about the same old things that I talk about. But now a lot of us are using digital platforms for marketing primarily. Can you tell us a little bit about, just at a high level, why is direct mail and like physical marketing like that, why is it not dead, but actually a gold mine?
Yeah, so I'll start off with a couple stats here. I got my little cheat sheet so I don't forget them. So I won't bore you with numbers. So I'll go over them relatively quickly. But just some of the numbers. This is all from 2024, a USPS study, right? So the USPS does a study every handful of years. They want people to use mail, right? So they got to incentivize this a little bit. But they're really good numbers. So the first thing is 80% of people say they look forward to seeing what's in their mailbox. So 80% look forward to going out to the mailbox, seeing what's in there. 73% of U.S. consumers prefer direct mail for brand communication because it allows them to read the information at their own convenience. 66% of direct mail is opened. I don't know about most email, but I'm guessing it's something far less than 66%. And this is the last one I'll give you, then we can kind of talk about it. Direct mail has an average shelf life, so when it hits your mailbox to the time it goes back into the garbage, of 17 days. Now, of course, that's letters, that's invitations, that's bank statements, that's magazine, right? That's everything. But 17 days on average. Email's 2%. Or 2%, 2 seconds, So this isn't to rail against digital. I use digital. I think you found me on LinkedIn, right? We use email, we use all that other stuff, but it's a tool in your toolbox that most people don't even have or don't even think about. So that's really the reason to be there is people like it, they trust it, and it's just received different, it's held different. I like to tell people, when was the last time you printed off a coupon and stuck it up on the fridge from an email? Probably never. Everybody gets Valpak, at the simplest level, everyone gets the Valpak mailers, and almost all of them take one or two things out and they stick around for those 17 days. So that's why you want to look at this. It's not an either or, it's a should this tool be utilized more, and is it even in my toolbox right now?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Now, you've cited some statistics showing that it can be quite effective. Maybe it'd be interesting to hear why. And then let me throw in also, you have a unique system, your 3D mail system, that gets even higher returns than the average mailer. Maybe talk a little bit about that and its increased effectiveness.
Yeah, well, so just at the general level with direct mail in general, tactile stuff, when we hold something, feel it, touch it, have it in our fingers. There's mailers out there where you actually can smell them, right? They'll put the cologne fragrance on. You got to scratch and sniff it type of deal, right? So when you get that feeling in your hands, you get all the senses working. It's a better sales environment than just staring at something on the screen, right? So that's kind of the first thing. It's the whole, and you kind of said at the beginning, it's the whole digital versus analog, right? So now we've got, the Gen Zers who have been living with digital their entire lives, right? So it's not like they were just born into it. And we're seeing now that a lot of them are moving, I want to hold something. Everything in my life is digital. Everything in my life is up in the cloud. I don't own anything. I don't have anything. And so at its simplest levels, it's just that human urge to touch and feel and hold and be able to stick it over here, right? Think about your office, whether you're at the home, whether you're at an office, doesn't matter. And it doesn't even matter if it's B2B or B2C. We all have that spot somewhere where the mail goes. And that's where we get that 17-day shelf life, where it kind of is like, oh yeah, I was supposed to go and do that. I was going to get that thing. I was going to redeem that thing. I was going to do that thing. And then to take it kind of the step further. So, we do a lot of different kinds of direct mail, but kind of our bread and butter is what you mentioned is 3D mail. So I'll show a couple props here. I assume we're on video. I'll describe them if we're not. But like we send out these little pill bottles, right? So these are like the pill bottles you get at your, at your pharmacy. But we're able to put messages in here, put a label on it, send it to the person, and now we're there. Your cure for blank. So your cure for horribly slow internet speeds, right? If we're going to go that way, or your cure for whatever. It really is kind of a universal thing. We're here in the summer. We're here in the U.S. We just had Independence Day. One of our fun little ones that we do here is what's called a pocket constitution. So your right to, or your right. So there's a whole bunch of different ways. I have clients now that just send these out as gifts every summer to their list. And now they're getting calls every year. Hey, I didn't get my pocket constitution yet. When are they coming, right? And so I'm sure there's clients of our clients that maybe have 3, 4, 5 of these stacked up somewhere, but they love them, right? I'll give one more example because it's universal. We have these little boomerangs here. So these little plastic boomerangs, we get them in Asia. They're inexpensive, but we use them as client reactivation mailers. So every business has customers that bought from them and then didn't buy again, like over the natural course of time, right? A dentist is easy. Every 6 months, you go to the dentist. If you hit month number 7, the dentist should be sending you something similar to this, right? So we say, we want you back, and we put a little boomerang into the envelope. So it's fun, it's tactile. When you get this boomerang in the envelope, because we still just stick it in an envelope, they got to know what's inside, right? They can feel it, they can touch it, let alone if a pill bottle shows up, right? A pill bottle shows up, they're probably opening it before they even walk back into the house, right? Because no one is, all marketing, all advertising, all sales comes back to attention. Can we get their attention for 2 seconds, then 5 seconds, then a minute, and then 10 minutes? And that's the currency in today's day and age for marketing and sales. And if you don't have attention, you can't sell. And so that's ultimately why we started this business, is we needed our direct mail to get attention.
Interesting. Okay, so I have a couple, maybe you could talk me through a couple potential use cases. So I think there's certain industries I associate with physical mail that I'm used to getting mail about. And, I get a lot of banks, a lot of local banks are soliciting me, or real estate agents are reaching out to me. The other, there's a few, but say me, I offer a digital service primarily, and I don't traditionally expect to get physical mail as advertising, a digital service. Do you think that's still an effective platform for somebody like me?
So first off, yes, I'll give you a great kind of mini case study from one of our most recent clients. Great. And it's appropriate because he used these little pill bottles. And since we kind of talked about that one, he is a coach in the real estate space. Okay. It's not real. Mainly everyone calls it the slimy get rich in real estate niche, right? But, that's what it is. That's what it essentially is. And he's lived most of his life online. And he's sold most of his stuff through webinars. So everything is delivered online, right? The lead gen is done online, the selling is done online, the delivery is done online. And like everybody, he's seen those numbers go down, right? So the registration numbers go down, the show up rate goes down, the close rate goes down. And what he did something very, very smart. He took that list. So these are all low-level buyers at some point. They've given him some small amount of money, and now he's putting them in a webinar to sell them into a higher ticket product, right? Well, now let's say he's got 500 registrants. He gets 250 to show up. We're usually seeing 40 to 50% show up. And then he's got some number that bought. Well, now he has got some of those 250 that watched but didn't buy, right? So can we send them something in the mail to up the ante? Could we give them, payment options that weren't on the webinar? Could we give, $1 now and pay the rest in 30, right? So there's lots of different offers we could give them to follow up. He also had 250 people that registered but didn't show up, right? And so now we've got this other pocket over here, right? And so if you think of it in terms of like sales funnels or marketing funnels, we use direct mail as they're coming down that funnel. We want to try to use direct mail to plug as many of those holes as we can, right? So if you think about it, everyone uses an autoresponder, right? So we get an opt-in, they get a free thing or a low-cost thing, they opt in, and now we drip on them with email, right? Well, you can do the
Mhm.
same thing with direct mail, right? We've set up a lot of clients now where they get a lead or they get a buyer and now they want to ascend them. Instead of just relying on email, we're sending very similar, to be honest, very similar offers, very similar messaging to that same person, but offline, but doing it the same way like an autoresponder. So it doesn't matter if Bill or Jack or Tammy comes in day 1, 7, or 50, they're all going to experience that same thing. So there are, lots of ways to do it. Those are just kind of the two ways that we've talked about so far. But you want to look at that sales cycle, look at that sales funnel. And where can we plug holes in so that they don't drop, or so they do drop out the bottom instead of coming out the sides? That's what we're looking to do.
Okay, no, that's great. I think that really explains it well. And I did like the aspect you touched on of combining the digital marketing efforts with the physical. I think that one of the principles of marketing we try to think of is to maximize the number of touch points that you have with a client or a potential client. The issue sometimes is, well, 7 emails don't equal 7 touches, because if they don't like it the first time, then they send you to spam and it's 1 touch.
Yep.
But if you are able to find other channels, then you obviously increase the probability of them working with you. Okay, so one thing that I know people have struggled with, and this is totally a digital and physical problem, is getting a high quality mailing list. The success of an email campaign often relies on the bounce rate, and I'm sure it works like that in the direct mail world. What is a good process to getting a really strong mailing list?
So it's a great question. What we like to say internally is that the success of any direct mail piece is about 50% list, 20 to 30% like media. So how are we delivering it? And then kind of 10% other, right? So you got
Okay.
50, 25, 20, and then 5 or 10. Other being, COVID 2020, you're offering dining March 20th, 2020, and you send out a mailer for your restaurant, you're toast, right? There's nothing we could have done about it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But 50% of that battle is the list. So in the hierarchy of lists, I gave you the first 2 already, which is your customer list and your prospect list. You should absolutely have the most success with those. And it's why when we're consulting clients, we almost always say, where are your unconverted leads? Where are your old customers? Like where in your business are those holes already existing? So that's a relatively easy one, right? We can see it. Anyone that has a database, now with CRMs, it's become exceedingly easy to do all this stuff. I mean, even the most basic email programs have the ability to have addresses and things like that. So that's kind of in your own little cocoon. From there, you've got to think about, okay, what if I want to prospect? What if I want to get people to know me? Kind of that very top of the funnel thing. And it really comes down to narrowly defining who your client is. So most people will say, men 45 to 65 with a certain income. But usually we can go deeper than that, right? And so it really starts with clearly identifying who that client is. If you're doing Facebook and any kind of platform advertising right now, they basically stole all that from direct mail, right? All the demographic data, all the interests, all the buying data, right? They stole that from people that have been collecting that data since, the 1880s, 1890s. I mean, so this list, little interesting side note, the credit bureaus are the ones that usually supply this data. And it started with, the most basic of credit cards, the most basic of credit worthiness 100 years ago. And then they found out they were sitting on a gold mine with the data, and the data was more important than the stamp of approval for a credit worthiness, right? So now you can get all this data. And we can even get like intention type data. So let's say you're a dentist and they hit your website, but they don't do anything, right? They hit your website, they don't opt in, they don't make the appointment. We can actually put like pixels on your website now and get that address. And then it's what we call direct mail retargeting. Everyone knows what retargeting is. Now we take that same person, that dentist, maybe they hit the orthodontics for children's page. We're able to get that address, send out a postcard for orthodontics for children, and retarget via the mail. And now you've got all the great things happening that we talked about the previous 10 or 15 minutes. So they can't ignore you. There's no email. There's no firewall. love or hate the USPS, they don't care what you send in the mail for the most part, right? No filter there. As long as you're legal, ethical, and moral, they don't care, right? And so we can send whatever we want. And so that's kind of the example of that. But it really starts with identifying your list. We have tools now as well where we can take a customer list and deconstruct it and see all the commonalities and then go buy that same list. We did that for a dry cleaner in Wichita, Kansas, for example. So there's a lot of, we could do a whole course on just list, but that's kind of the basics of it. Customer list, prospect list, and then very defined prospecting list.
Okay. No, that's super helpful. Another kind of example question. So I think maybe to help at least me visualize this, say we were taking like a services provider, like a plumber. I always go to plumbers, but I really respect plumbers.
I always do dentists because everyone knows dentists, right? So we're in the same boat when it comes to that.
Well, I think, commonality that they have is like the driving distance is kind of what determines like the radius that people will work with somebody. Now, if I were to design a campaign, can you talk a little bit about like time frame? Are we talking like a single mailer or a series of mailers? And maybe like approximate budget and actual work required of the client.
So some of that is going to be very broad. As a big general rule of thumb, we prefer more pieces mailed to the same list, right? So I'd rather do 500 people 3 times than 1,500 people once. That's just kind of the general big rule of thumb for us. But I'll give you an example. In the home services industry, we have a client, they do roofs, siding, windows, and doors, right? But what they really want, what they want more than anything in the world, is the guy that wants to drop $80,000 for a backyard remodel. Put the patio in, put the pergola in, put a kitchen in, right? And so with that kind of guy, so we've got, and this is real world example right now, the home services business, we've got basically 2 campaigns. We've got a campaign where he gets, let's say, we'll call it the simple stuff. Roofing repair, windows, that kind of stuff. Kind of the necessary evil parts of his business. Still profitable, still good for him. So with those people, he usually knows a decent amount of time where he's going to be. So we'll drop a mail piece before we show up. Hey, we'll be at the Johnson's house doing XYZ, and yada, yada, yada. Then while we're there, we'll drop a direct mail piece. Then after we've been there, we'll drop another direct mail piece, right? And so the idea being most homes in most places are clustered together. They are all built around the same time. They all have about the same qualities and, they're generally speaking the same value of the home. The residents are generally speaking made up of the same demographics. So he identifies those places. Now, there's some neighborhoods he doesn't necessarily want to be in, so he doesn't necessarily mail to those customers. It might be a one-off for him. So we have that over there, and it's a system that we do. He also has this other system over here where one of 2 ways. He's either in the neighborhood and doing one of those $80,000 remodels in the backyard, right, or adding additions onto things. And in that case, we'll do the same thing, but we'll spice it up. We'll start using boomerangs, right? Because those are his high margin items. Those are the things, and he likes to do them, right? So let's market those things more. At the same time, even in neighborhoods where he's not, he will still target maybe 150 to 500 homes. Because again, they're all clustered together. They're on acreage usually. So he's out in Western Pennsylvania. So they're usually on acreage, 3,000 to 4,000 foot homes, right? And so we can identify that person. And now we do what's called a Dream 100 campaign, where we're dripping on those 100, 200, 500 homes, usually every month. Because again, he's perfectly happy to pay, maybe not perfectly happy, but he's happy to pay several thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars to get a $80,000, $100,000, $150,000 job, right? So that loops us back now to the last part of your question was how much to spend, where, the budget. It's all going to depend on who that client is, the mailer, and who their clients are. So the plumber probably can't do the boomerangs and the pill bottles that the home rebuilder can, right? Because, generally speaking, they're hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars, right? Thousands but so a lot of it's going to depend on what's my client value, what's a transaction value, what's the lifetime value of that client. So there's a lot of things that go involved into what do we spend, but those are the things to consider, right? Value of it, value of the transaction. Is it an ongoing relationship where they could potentially be giving me money every week, every month, every year? Well, maybe I'm perfectly happy going negative on that first sale. One bite at the apple, well, I can't be negative on that first bite of the apple. I got to be positive. So that changes, it changes the dynamic of what you can spend in marketing and what you can't spend.
Okay. No, that's helpful. And, Travis, I get the sense you're not just selling a commodity, that you are selling your expertise, and really like you make it make sense. And I, even to somebody that I just have no experience with direct mail, though I'm a fan,
Yeah.
I have just never pulled the trigger on those campaigns, but I think you're inspiring me.
Yeah. Well, that's the client we want. The client we want is the client, like I described at the beginning, or even the home builder. We want to set up systems. We want to create things for you that's best for us, right? I mean, we talked about, hey, we get a client that gives us money every week. That's great. But then the outcome is he gets money every week, because now he has these marketing systems in place where he says go and they happen, like an autoresponder, right? Just like that. And so that's the kind of relationships we want to work with clients that want to build systems. Now, again, most people are in the one-off world, right? Customers yesterday. What can you do to get me customers now? In a perfect world, we're hopefully taking that customer, getting them the results they need in the short term, and then saying, hey, how can we automate this or systematize this so that you're not running to me every quarter saying we need more customers today?
Right. No, that makes a ton of sense. Well, Travis, I think we're all pretty inspired. Can you tell us, if somebody would want to work with you, where could they find you? What's the best means to find you?
I'll give you two different websites. The first one is just my general 3D mail website. It's where you can see boomerangs and pill bottles and bank bags and constitutions and things like that. The fun stuff, right? The stuff that's fun to look at and be creative with. That's 3dmailresults.com. So the number 3, the letter D, mailresults.com. You can check us out. We've got a free booklet there you can download, right? We do all the direct response stuff, so you'll see that there. If you kind of want to take the next step up, would be to go and get my book. It's called The Simple 3-Step Process That Ensures Direct Mail Success. Remember, we talked about list offer media, so we have a book that covers list offer media. You can just go to my name with my middle initial, so travisalee.com. That'll get you a book. It's $4 with shipping, so it's real low cost. But that would kind of be the next step up if you want to see how we do these things and really see what that 3-step process looks like and how we think about creating these campaigns. That would be the next place for you to go.
Fantastic. Well, I would really recommend that anybody interested in doing something that really makes an impact and increases return on investment for ad spend, I think this is a great avenue. So thank you so much for joining us today, Travis.
Thank you, Reed. Thanks for the invite. Great chatting with you.
Want to stay ahead of what's actually working in marketing right now? Head over to marketsurge.io and see how we're helping businesses grow smarter, faster, and louder. That's marketsurge.io, because your next breakthrough shouldn't be a guess.